OutKick 360 is back in one man short. Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton.
I was applauding us being back, not being one man short. I don't want anyone to
one man short. Yep.
What I'm saying, I love Paul. There's going to be a lot of mixed signals there that I'm clapping when he says we're one man short. That's not the case.
PK out today with a graduation for young Simon. So congratulations to Simon Kuharski. Big show planned today across the OutKick network. We will have Ryan Leaf, former number 2 overall pick, behind Peyton Manning, of course Heisman Trophy finalist, and he's going to be in town for a mental health seminar that is taking place right here in Nashville, and some great stories behind the scenes that we'll ask him about. For instance, I want to know what he did the night of the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Because that group with Charles Woodson, Randy Moss, and Peyton Manning and him, I want to know what happened after the fact with all of that. That's coming up in about 15 minutes.
By the way, if you go back and look at the video of that Heisman ceremony, it's the most quintessential 90s wardrobe that you've ever seen from everyone on that panel. Randy Moss is in shades inside, right?
Yeah, he was in shades, I think, because he was kind of freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, he was like nervous, he said, the whole time. But he had the shades on. Those suits that were so big that were in the night. Like, it's so funny to go back. It's like a parody sketch when you watch it of the 90s wardrobes when you see that Heisman ceremony from the 1997 season.
Ryan Leaf's scheduled to be with us. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. John McClain from the Houston Chronicle is also on the show today. NFL headlines coming up at 12:15. And in the Tennessee Power Hour, the Tennessee Vols getting a new commitment. Plus, the Predators fall in Game 2. And, man, did they play hard. If you listen to their head coach, they just play so hard.
I don't know what everyone was watching last night, but getting shut out's great. It's perfect. It's nothing to see here. Nothing wrong with that. Anybody who had a problem with the Preds getting shut out, you need to go somewhere else, because that was a great effort and performance by the Preds last night.
What an effort by Kluber last night with another no-hitter. The 6th no-hitter in Major League Baseball this season, and it's May 20th. It happened on May 19th. The 6th no-hitter. The record, the modern era record, is 7 in a season. And OutKick actually had the story yesterday after the Tigers did this on the road in Seattle with the no-hitter. Would we see the record and the new record set? Will we see 3 more? Well, we saw one right after, the night after we saw one against Seattle. I think Seattle's been no-hit twice this year, by the way.
They've been no-hit twice in 2.5 weeks.
Because the Orioles did it to them.
Yes, it's been like 2 weeks they've been no-hit twice.
So that leaves the question, will we see one tonight? Could Trevor Bauer be on the mound tonight?
Here's my question, and David Reed brought this up also, so I think he agrees with me on this. Is this really good for the game? Is this good for baseball to have this many no-hitters? It is home run or bust in today's game, and that at times, I'm watching a lot of Braves baseball, and they are one of the worst offenders at this, where some of those guys, Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies, to name 2, are so bad at hitting, it's pathetic. They go up there, and they are either striking out or hitting a home run or grounding into a double play. There's no base hits from a lot of these guys, and when you have no base hits, you have a historic amount of no-hitters through mid-May in a season. I don't think that's a good thing for the quality of the sport. And I'm tired of hearing announcers applaud a guy for hitting it to a side of the field no one's on. Boy, what a sacrifice there for that player to just, choke up a little bit and make contact and get on base and hit. And I'm thinking, that's baseball. You hit them where they ain't. And you don't always have to hit them where they ain't over the wall. You can hit it in the park and get on base also. It's a possibility. I'm just, and maybe part of this is my disgust with the Braves, even though they won in walk-off fashion last night. I'm disgusted with their manager making horrific decisions with the bullpen. I'm disgusted with their lineup. I'm disgusted with highly paid guys that are paid to help the team win, that consistently strike out in the worst possible moments. And this no-hitter story just adds fuel to that fire, because I look around the game right now and I think, this is not good for baseball, that you're having this many no-hitters at this point in the season. And maybe you disagree, but I don't think it's a good sign for hitting in the game today.
Well, as long as we don't get to a point where we're reaching like 10 to 15 of these. It's 6 by the end of May. It's crazy if you think about it.
It's nuts.
And what we're seeing. I don't mind the. I mean, I enjoy whenever ESPN will cut in live to the final 3 at bats or the 3 outs, right? Like there's some drama there that I'm not otherwise watching, and most of these are taking place on your regional sports networks and not on your Sunday night game of the week on national TV where it's 1-0 as the final score. So I don't hate it, but you know me, I'm a fan of the long ball. So if it's going to be launched, it's swing away. I'm all for it.
Yeah, look, I'm a fan of a guy like Ronald Acuna Jr. who hits home runs and gets on base.
Can do
and
it all.
Does a little
Sure.
bit of everything. And he hits the walk-off home run. Crazy that everything he's done already in his young career, he's never had a walk-off home run until last night. And I'm watching it live, and Chip Carey says that fact right before the first pitch of the 9th inning. Said, of all the things Ronald Acuna Jr.'s done, doesn't have one walk-off home run to his name. First pitch home run, game over, which was cool to see. But I just think there could be more variance of what we see in the game. And for a team like the Mariners, that's a complete joke. I mean, that is a firm indictment on your entire operation that you get no hit twice in 2 weeks. That is not good. However you want to slice it, that is not a good thing to be a part of this level of history because there's so many no-hitters right now in the game.
I was recording a podcast last night, so I got home late, full disclosure, and watched the Preds for our Tennessee Power Hour so we can fully discuss their Game 2 loss. I did not watch the majority. I watched the very end of Curry against LeBron, Golden State against L.A. Did you see some of this?
Yeah, I watched.
And did it live up to the hype of what the national media wanted it to be for the play-in matchup?
Well, the first half was great. I watched most of the first half. Surprising opinion I have on this. I'm really enjoying the play-in games. Even though some have been blowouts, I like that format, and I have enjoyed it. The Grizzlies-Spurs game was really good, and the Grizzlies ended up winning, but I'm enjoying those games. First half was great. Steph Curry hit some insane threes. He hit a buzzer beater in the half that I think put the Warriors up 14 at half. But then it was all LeBron and the Lakers in the second half, and they win it. But, yeah, I would say it lived up to the hype with the back and forth between those two. But I am actually enjoying this format. And looking at the ratings numbers, while the ratings in the NBA are terrible and way down, this is one thing that is exponentially up this time of year. When you look at these ratings versus all regular season games and then what they were at this time a year ago, or the similar time frame, they're up, I think, about, I want to say, 64%.
These individual games.
Just these individual games starting at 5:30 p.m. Central for the first one on the East Coast. So I do think it's something that's here to stay, and I don't mind it. I sort of like it, that it's almost like a lottery-type feel to those last 2 seeds in the East and West. I like it.
Pacers and Wizards tonight, and maybe that will be part of the FanDuel parlay, the 360 parlay that we will have coming up a little bit later. Maybe it will be. One leg short of the parlay last night, Chad.
Yeah, so I won the night before. I lost last night because Dillon Brooks was 0 for 4 from 3. If Dillon Brooks hit 2 threes, I had Dillon Brooks with 2 threes, and the Grizzlies went outright. Grizzlies won outright. Dillon Brooks did not hit 2 threes. And the other leg of the parlay was the Warriors scoring less than 106.5, which they did. So one leg short, but one leg short in a parlay, for those that don't know the parlay parlance, that's a loser. So I am a loser. I now pass it on to Hutton, who hopefully will be a winner, who will have the 360 parlay later in the show.
We've got it for you coming up a little bit later this hour prior to the Tennessee Power Hour. We mentioned Ryan Leaf's coming up. A couple of other headlines, though. Tim Tebow, official in Jacksonville. He signs his contract. He's reporting to the minicamp. They release a press release just to localize it a bit. The press release reminded me of like Javon Kearse returning to the Titans after he had spent his career and left and went to Philly, came back to the Titans as the former draft pick Urban Meyer, welcoming in Tim Tebow as a tight end, and the press release with the quotes for the 90th man on the roster is funny. It's laughable. But here we go. Here comes the hoopla and all of the mystique around whether or not he's going to make the roster when it's all said and done. But he's headed to training camp with the Jacksonville Jaguars to make it official.
The reaction to Tim Tebow has been the story, whether overwhelmingly good or overwhelmingly negative. The fact that Tim Tebow may make the back end of the roster or probably won't, that's not the story. It's everyone in the media's reaction to the story. And I'll say the ugly truth about it, that not many people are going to say it. There's a lot of media members that don't like Tim Tebow because there's a lot of Southern Republicans that love Tim Tebow, Christian Republicans. That's what they're never going to tell you, but it's the truth. They don't like the people who love Tim Tebow, so they now hate Tim Tebow and they write bad things about Tim Tebow. I like Tim Tebow, the person. I think he's a great person. I think he stands for a lot of great things. And I do not begrudge Tim Tebow. But I do think that there's an underserved opinion out there, and mine's one of them, that just simply has an issue with anyone that gets opportunities like this where they really have not earned them. And I do think that there's a group of people in the middle that feel that way about Tim Tebow. And they don't hate Tim Tebow. They hate the opportunity it represents. And I think that's human nature to respond that way. And just take it with anyone. Take Tim Tebow out of it. Take anyone who's been out of a game or a sport for 7 or 8 years, and you see all these people that are coming out of college or that, are trying hard to make the end of a roster that aren't getting the opportunities. And they see Tim Tebow, who it's sort of like the CEO's nephew getting a gig that's high paying. It's not a high paying gig, but you see my point. This is like a familial, incestuous, Urban Meyer coached you in college.
Because he's not in the league, it's not for Meyer.
I'm going to give you a chance, and there's some tight end working his ass off that's not getting that opportunity. I think it's human nature to not like that situation and not like that opportunity, and I think that's okay also. But the ugly truth of it is people that defend Tebow and that love Tebow, they're on one side, and there's a lot of people hating Tim Tebow and everything he's about for the reason I just said. Because there are a ton of Southern Republican Christians that love Tim Tebow, and they despise those people. That's the God's honest truth.
And they're using the cover of he's taking someone's roster spot.
They're never going to admit that. There are a few people that actually admit it. I've seen a few people saying, I forget the media member, someone said, I hate Tim Tebow because everyone who voted for Donald Trump loves Tim Tebow, is what they said. And I'm thinking to myself, well, at least you're honest about it. Because I think there's a lot of people out there, Dan Wolken is one of them, that are honest about it. They rip Tim Tebow, they hate Tim Tebow for the reason I just said.
We love Manscaped. The Manscaped 4.0 lawnmower, perfect for Father's Day coming up.
My goodness, what a segue.
The best in men's grooming. Father's Day is coming. The weather is catching heat, and whether you have a dad bod or you're rocking a six-pack like David Reed, make sure you and your dad smell great and you're groomed where it matters most. Perfect for Father's Day. The all-new trim of the Lawnmower 4.0 with the refined cologne by Manscaped. Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, just dropped their Lawnmower 4.0, and it is legit. They obsess over providing the best tech, the advanced ceramic blade, the skin-safe technology.
Hutton with one of the greatest segues of all time. There's no great segue into an LED spotlight, but I'll do it anyways because it provides a more precise shave. And they're now new additional guard link sizes 1 through 4. It's waterproof, perfect for the shower, plus wireless charging. We can all get behind wireless charging.
Absolutely. Manscaped providing OutKick 360 season ticket holders with a great offer. 20% off plus free shipping with the code OK360 at manscaped.com. Whether it's a gift for you, your dad, or the men in your life, 20% off and free shipping with the code OK360 at manscaped.com.
Most tenants are good people who play by the rules. But sometimes you can get one who's a little deadline challenged. In other words, they're late with the rent. When this happens, you can either spend the precious hours you have left on Earth calling, texting, and emailing them, or you can turn over your property management to Renters Warehouse. Because when we say we'll collect the rent, we'll collect the rent. Need a pen?
OutKick 360 is back. Glad you're with us. Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton across the OutKick Network. David Reed, Jacob Swanson making the show happen for us. Sarah Triplett, our great production assistant. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is working to fill in the gaps for former and current players in providing a comprehensive solution for mental and behavioral health. And their treatment facilities are top of the line. They specialize in treating athletes. And from the Nashville Recovery Center to Vanderbilt Health here in Tennessee to treatment centers across the country, finding help has never been easier. And here's a key point of emphasis. Though the Hall of Fame Behavioral Health was mentioned, as we mentioned, it's for professional athletes, the program is open to everyone and anyone who needs help. There's no limit to who the Hall of Fame Behavioral Health Program wants to reach, and you don't have to be a professional football player or to really even ever watch a football game to get the help that you may need or to contact them. We're lucky to have former Heisman Trophy finalist and former quarterback Ryan Leaf in town this Sunday to share his story and to continue to speak out against the importance of ending the stigma surrounding mental health. He's going to be at the Nashville Recovery Center this Sunday from 2 until 4 p.m. Chad and I are happy to be advocates and friends of this cause as well. And Ryan Leaf joins us now on OutKick 360 via the magic of Zoom. Ryan, thank you so much for the time today. Hope you're doing well, man.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Excited to get you into town, and I know you're excited about the work that the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame Behavioral Health Program and the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen and experienced a lot of loss this year in terms of former players. I don't know why it feels like it's hit me as hard, but maybe because we're all isolated in a way because of this pandemic, but we've seen our brothers fall by the wayside, and we saw nothing from the NFL or nothing from the NFLPA. And the Hall of Fame is kind of like Switzerland. It really doesn't have any alliance to either one of them. It's its own entity. And when Wes and Ryan Cain joined forces with them, it became a powerful tool to help people who are in need, in particular former players, as well, like you said, anybody that truly is accepting and wants help.
Ryan, if there's been, I think it's hard to say there's a lot of positives coming out of a pandemic where everyone's shut in at home, but one thing that I've seen with it, and I'm curious if you found this as well, it has helped in awareness of mental health. It's really brought to light a lot of mental health issues in the United States and across the world because people have been isolated during this time. Have you found that to be the case?
Well, I think that we've seen just a lot more of it talked about openly and not in the shadows or in the dark, because everybody's going through it. I think that before there were people who were dealing with mental health issues, another person wasn't, they didn't have any empathy around it. But what the last 18 months essentially has done is it's shown that everybody can experience this. There are lulls and there are moments in your existence during a time where everybody says to isolate, when we are a human race that wants to embrace, wants to have fellowship. And when that wasn't there, we all experienced something very similar. And so I think there's some empathy around that now for people who may have not known, may have not experienced, or may have not been open to others talking about this openly.
Ryan Leaf with us on OutKick 360. For more information, if you're in the Nashville area about attending this free event, you can check out the Nashville Recovery Center website. And for more information on the work that the Hall of Fame is doing, hofbh.com. Ryan, I don't know why I thought of this whenever I learned that you were going to be there on Sunday and that you were coming on the show, but randomly I thought of Hunter S. Thompson writing a letter to Jim Irsay back during your draft with Manning, begging him, wanting to pay him to draft you instead of Peyton Manning. And I know you've heard about this story in recent years. When did this first come to light, and did you think that it was real at first when you saw the letter?
No, this is my story. I broke it. I was at a Dodgers game, and a guy behind me tapped me on the shoulder and told me he was close to Jim Irsay, and if I'd ever seen the Hunter S. Thompson letter. And I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So he sent a copy of it to me, and I sent it to Rich Eisen because we were gonna do a little bit on the Rich Eisen show around it. And sure enough, yeah, it was. I mean, he wrote a letter to Jim, spouting off about how Peyton was a China doll and I was a big, strong, strapping man and would get it done for the Colts and not Pat Manning. So he thought that the Johnny Depp film was going to take off, and he got plenty of money that Jim Irsay could borrow if he needed to get a quarterback like myself.
And Fear and Loathing was quite popular.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't understand half of it, but all my friends were watching it, so I did too. It was one of those deals. The Heisman Trophy ceremony with you and Woodson and Moss and Peyton. What was that night like behind the scenes, looking back on that evening?
Well, it was a wonderful night for me. I knew I wasn't going to win, so therefore I just enjoyed every moment. Now, don't get me wrong; I would have loved to have been the Heisman Trophy winner, and
sure.
But Charles had to stay there. Charles had to stay there all night and sign autographs and do media and all these things. And then the Mannings, who I assume thought he was a shoo-in for the award, like everybody else, myself included, I think had rented out a restaurant to celebrate in or something like that. So they had to go and kind of be melancholy on that night. Randy was a mess. Randy was going through an anxiety attack, panic attack kind of. He wouldn't take off his glasses, and it just had to. I wish I would have known then and tried to comfort him, because no one knew what was going on. And myself, I just didn't know I was going to win. I knew I wasn't going to win. So, my head coach and I went and saw Saturday. We got tickets to Saturday Night Live. We saw Jack Nicholson was the host. Then we went to a bar where all the former winners and ESPN media types were at, and we partied all night. I went out behind the bar and was bartending with Gino Torretta, and ended up coming home at 3 a.m. and there was a piano in the middle of the downtown athletic club, and there was a bunch of former winners all around it playing karaoke or singing karaoke to the piano songs, and right in the middle of it was my father, John Leaf, who had a better Heisman night than I did, probably, with all the interactions with those former winners, heroes that he had growing up. Probably the coolest thing that football ever gave me.
You and Gino Torretta as bartenders in New York City is a sitcom that I would pay to watch for sure. So
Gino and Ryan, yeah, slanging drinks.
That's right. Yes. So when you think back at that time and the Heisman, I have long argued that Peyton Manning was sort of the victim of a media fatigue throughout his entire life.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and it all culminated in that moment where, I will say it, Peyton Manning was absolutely robbed of a Heisman Trophy by a guy who had 4 total touchdowns, who played both offense, defense, and also played special teams. And that's not taking anything away from Charles Woodson. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a great player, obviously. But when you look back now, so many years later, what do you think about Peyton not winning the Heisman that night?
I think that was it. There was some fatigue. He decided to come back for that senior year, and they had all these expectations, and they couldn't get over. They won the SEC championship. That usually bodes well, and then they got throttled by Nebraska in the co-national championship game. Voters are going to vote. It was an anomaly that year. The only defensive player to win it was in our year, which was arguably the best Heisman class ever. 3 Hall of Famers are in that photo with me. It's pretty impressive. I look back on it now, and I think that I don't see how I didn't win it. I led the nation in passing. I had more touchdowns than Peyton. I led my team that was picked 7th in the conference before the season started to a Rose Bowl, the first time that had happened in 67 years. Out of the 4, I was probably the most worthy that year to win it. But because I was in such a small market on the West Coast, that wasn't going to happen. So I really felt like it was Peyton's award. He came back. He won a championship by winning his conference. They hadn't done that forever. And he really built the team. If he had 1 year left, if he had redshirted, he would have been the member of that national championship team in the next year that T. Martin and the Tennessee Volunteers went on to win. So, it was surprising for me because I just assumed Peyton was going to win it. Just like every quarterback award that year that I was up against Peyton in, he won. Except for one. I won the Sammy Baugh Quarterback of the Year award, which still stuns me to this day. I actually won an award in a year that Peyton Manning was the corresponding quarterback. But it is what it is. I just got to experience a really cool thing that night.
Well, and you make a compelling argument with what you said about your year there at Washington State. When you think about Peyton Manning now, and you guys see each other at any point, when I think of Ryan Leaf, I think of Peyton Manning, and I think of that Heisman race, and I think of the battle over who's going to be the first pick in the NFL draft and everything else. So there's a lot of sports minds that immediately think of the two of you together. When you guys see each other, Ryan, is there that sort of camaraderie between the two of you about the debate leading up to the NFL draft?
Well, not about the debate. We just know we're irreparably, tied to one another. And we've stayed close. His family stayed close during a lot of my struggles, which is amazing. I texted him yesterday on any recommendations for golf in Nashville this weekend. He came back with a couple good ones. We just stay in touch. We're both dads, about the same age, raising kids, and doing something in kind of the broadcasting side of things. Him with his ESPN Plus show, Peyton's Places, and doing a bunch of different things with commercials and stuff like that. Myself working for SiriusXM and ESPN, and it's just we're 45-year-old dads now that no longer play football and now can just enjoy a friendship that was tied to us 20, 25 years ago.
Well, do you get tired of talking about Peyton? I feel like, knowing you were coming on, I was like, I'm sure he's tired of talking about the Heisman, talking about number 1 versus number 2 pick. But that's the point of conversation. Like, viewers tune in, they see your name, they want to discuss that topic. What's it like being the guy that always has to answer those questions?
It is what it is, right? You can't control that. I mean, if you're willing to put yourself out there and go on sports talk shows and kind of lay your life bare, that's it. I think it's kind of a humbling experience to be in the same sentence as Peyton Manning, that we were neck and neck on who should be drafted. One had a successful NFL career, one did not. That is a dime a dozen in this conversation. I think there's just a ton of expectation on me that I didn't live up to, and therefore everybody assumes that I don't like the discussion revolving Peyton Manning. I think he's a great man, and I always am floored by how he was able to do it. That's the biggest question I ask him sometimes. Like, how did you do it? Because I know how difficult it is. How difficult is it for every quarterback drafted in the top 5? How difficult that is, and the ones that are able to accomplish big things, it's a miracle. That's the exception. The rule is, you're going to wash out of the NFL. That's just the way it is. You have one top 10 quarterback in the last 10 years to win a Super Bowl, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Everybody else, hasn't got it done.
And you certainly understand the pressure that comes with that, right? Like, what advice do you lend with the 5 quarterbacks that we saw go in the first round this past April? When you think about what they're under the scrutiny and the pressure and the grind that comes with that position, and the expectations that every fan base and every media member has of those individuals.
Well, I just tell them to understand that it starts all over, right? Just whatever you've done to this point to get drafted so high, that's over. You had no control over where you were going to get drafted. That was in the hands of somebody else. And if they chose to take you in the first round, you get all the pressure and all the stress and all the everything that comes with it. So what you need to do is see yourself as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, period. Day one. You walk into that locker room, you go find a guy that has played 10 or 12 years in this league. You ask him how he did it, and then you follow his advice verbatim. That's what you do. I had 2 perfect examples. I had Rodney Harrison and Junior Seau on the other side of the football when I got to San Diego, and I just didn't do it, right? I just was more interested in kind of being their buddies than I was learning how to get it done, and that's what really set me back. So that's the biggest piece of advice I give those quarterbacks when I do speak to them at the Combine or anywhere else when they enter the NFL draft, is that this is a team game. You are going to get all the blame and all the accolades when you win or lose. It's not fair, but it's the way it is. It's the position you chose to play, and this is how you have to go about doing it. And there's things I didn't do because I was as talented as anybody when I was drafted. Probably more talented than Peyton Manning. I just didn't have it between the ears on how to get it done, and that's why it's so impressive and it's so needed to be told to these young men.
So the Titans drafted Isaiah Wilson in the first round a year ago, and we're here a year later, and he's completely out of football. And it did not work out for a number of reasons, and some of them, some incidents off the field with Isaiah Wilson. When you see a story like that, Ryan, or you start to see incidents popping up, or maybe even just one incident with a very talented player, early in their NFL career, or even with you covering college football for Sirius and ESPN, because of your own personal struggles, does your antenna pop up a little bit quicker than others when you see something like that happen?
Well, I have a different probably perspective than others. People immediately go, how can this guy who has everything waste it all away? Well, I can have empathy around what an individual is going through, whether it's through mental health struggles or substance abuse issues. I can empathize with that. So yeah, I definitely go in that direction. But the NFL is not for the weak of mind. It doesn't suffer fools, because the NFL is not going to help you with your mental health disorder, right? They're going to kick you out of the league, and then you can go deal with that on your own. And that's a bigger issue, right? The mental health side of it, and you don't address it because the stigma exists, and that's why we're doing what we're doing this weekend, and it's why the Behavioral Health Center has teamed up with the Hall of Fame to try to help players going through mental health illnesses. Because I remember at the end of my career, I didn't feel comfortable walking into the head coach's office in Seattle with Mike Holmgren and telling him, hey, I don't know what's wrong. I feel lazy. I can't get out of bed, and I feel sad all the time. I don't know what's wrong. Instead, I just quit because I didn't know what that was. I hadn't been diagnosed. You don't go into the locker room, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody in the locker room my whole life say, I'm really struggling here, you guys. Can somebody help me? I've never heard it. So that's what we're trying to destroy in all this, that stigma, that you can do this. And we've seen players recently come out and talk more about it, but it's still rampant. And the NFL in itself won't do anything about it, right? They want to make their money. And I get it. They're a capitalistic business, right? They're about making money. That's what they are. So juxtaposed against the idea that your current and former players are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues, they don't need to care about that. And I get it. We've been sold a bill of goods with all the propaganda that they continue to spew out, that they are there for people when they're not. And then when your union doesn't line it up either, that's an even bigger problem, because they're supposed to be advocating for you and your health and safety and everything like that. That's why, again, I can't thank enough the Hall of Fame, who's not tied to either entity, has kind of been itself as a third party, willing to partner up with in their behavioral health platform to try to help former players and hopefully current players as well. Because if the situation with Isaiah Wilson is a perfect one of that, where his mental health has just run rampant and no one has done anything about it. They just kept pointing to the fact that he's wasted such an opportunity, or they pointed out how Tennessee blew it by drafting somebody like that in the first round instead of actually addressing the problems.
How much of it, too, just trying to put myself at the age of these players now, is, I need to deal with this later. We mentioned the PA not doing enough. It's the former players that are looking back on what they wish they would have done. And how difficult is it to get the current players to buy into the negotiation of what the former players wish they would have done? You see where I'm going with that? Like changing the mentality and the mindset of, let's get what we have to get right now and then worry about the rest later.
It's so hard. Well, first of all, former players don't have a voice in the collective bargaining and negotiations. That's the main thing. I mean, if a former player's voice isn't heard, how can a current player figure it out? Because a current player never believes they're going to be a former player. They never believe they're going to need any of the benefits that exist for the former player, because they've going to have made tens of millions of dollars, right? And they see the benefits that we get as former players as almost, charity or welfare, because I've got millions and millions of dollars. The transition is so difficult. You've been this identity for so long, so they don't understand it. So first off, there needs to be a voice in the negotiating room for the former player. It just has to. The current players are all they care about is all the things that exist for them in their little bubble, in their circle, right? And that's how many practices, how many preseason games, how many regular season games, what's the cap going to be, what is the revenue sharing, all of these things in the current status, but they never address the former player side of it. And when it's done, and when the CBA is signed, the former players just have to eat it, whatever it is. And if there's crumbs thrown your way, you just have to take it. Like, we didn't have a say in anything, so that's just the way it is.
So, Ron, you talked about that lack of empathy a lot of times from fans of sports when someone's suffering with substance abuse or mental health issues. I think oftentimes, and I can speak for myself, the issues come when you can see someone that doesn't want to help themselves. And I'll look at Isaiah Wilson as an example. He doesn't think anything's wrong. He doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. He thinks everyone else is an idiot for being concerned about him. You've lived this. You've gone through with this. Is it possible to help someone who doesn't want to help themselves? Or does that person have to come to the realization, this isn't leading me down a good path. I need help, and now I'm vulnerable to someone giving me that help. How do you view a situation like that?
Yeah, I work with a ton of people who are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues, and if they're not willing to completely surrender and accept help, there's nothing much you can do. But you can keep trying. You can keep trying to be that solution for them and give them what they need. And if they continue to turn you down and turn you down and turn you down, that's ultimately on them. That's their choice. You can't control that. So, like this weekend, finally traveling for the first time since this pandemic had started to give back, I didn't realize how much I craved that or needed that to be able to be of service to a community. And I don't know why Nashville or the state of Tennessee, which is Peyton Manning country, has really wrapped me in their arms. Out of all of my speaking engagements over the last 4 years, the most has been in the state of Tennessee for whatever reason, when it talks about behavioral health, substance abuse, any of those. And I'm so excited to get back there this weekend and do what I do, and that's try to be part of the solution. And when I walk into that room and I give my talk on Sunday afternoon and I look around the room, those that take my message and think, hey, this is just a bunch of crap, or take it and absorb it, or eventually down the line when they hit a space where they need something like that, they have it. And that's what I've done. I'm doing my part. In the case of Isaiah Wilson, people have tried, and they continue to try to help him. And he's not willing, and he's not ready, and he's not able to accept and surrender completely. And that's nothing you can do about it until somebody's hit their bottom, whatever that looks like. The hope in all of this is that he hears something eventually, that he doesn't have to get to a bottom like I got to, where I was willing to take my life and end up in a prison cell, right? That's the hope in all of this, and the reason why I continue to talk about it and go about my business, because it's incredibly emotionally draining to talk about stuff like this. But I know it's worthwhile. I know it's going to make a difference. That's something I would have never been able to do as a football player if I would have had a bunch of success. I would have never been able to have the impact that I'm going to have because of all my stuff that I went through and overcame. That's the bigger issue in all of this.
Ryan Leaf, our guest, will be speaking at the Nashville Recovery Center this Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. NashvilleRecoveryCenter.com for more information as he gets to town this Sunday. Ryan, on the way out, which of these quarterbacks was your favorite during the draft process, and why?
Well, Trevor Lawrence, I've followed him for his entire college career. I've spent a lot of time with the Clemson program and around Trevor the last few years when I spoke to the team and did some work with Dabo and that crew. So I know them really well, and he is about a great a prospect coming in the NFL since Andrew Luck. I really do believe that. Unfortunately, it's with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but there are quarterbacks, they're rare, that change the environment when you get there. Peyton Manning is a perfect example. He changed the environment of Indianapolis. He changed the environment to winning football. And maybe Trevor Lawrence has that ability. I know he has that ability. It's just a matter of if that team can combine it, whether Urban Meyer is willing to struggle and stick around and deal with adversity. He's never done it. He's never had a sub-500 coaching season in his career. Both him and Trevor Lawrence, who's never lost a regular season game, are about to find out what it's like to lose a bunch of games. They could lose anywhere from 10 to 15 games, I would imagine, this season. So I really like him. I thought Justin Fields was the number 2 guy. He slips all the way to 11. I think the Chicago Bears got a great quarterback for their future there. I think the 2 guys that had the best chance at success are Trey Lance and Mac Jones because of the systems and the organizations they fell to. I think that gives them the advantage, and it's most likely both of them are going to sit this entire year for both those teams, for the Patriots and the 49ers.
But they get an extra month or two, theoretically, barring some injury, at least on paper, right, where you mentioned the systems. Chad, you bet Trey Lance for Rookie of the Year based just on the system itself, right?
That's my bet because of Shanahan and because the team he's going to. That's already good.
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They probably have to give him Rookie of the Year in year 2 or year 3. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get that team back to pretty damn good place this year. I don't expect to see Trey Lance play except in the preseason this season.
Well, you just crushed Chad's hopes.
Well, I will say, Ryan, I actually took the bet more so because the odds were so long.
Oh, yeah.
That you could put $5 down and it's so long. Trey Lance is way down the list.
There's a reason why it's so long. Yeah.
I took a flyer on, I definitely took a long-distance flyer on Trey Lance starting early in the year for San Francisco. So there are some players that have better odds, like the one you like the most, Trevor Lawrence, who has the best odds to be Rookie of the Year.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do it in Jacksonville. I really do think so. It's going to be really, really difficult to win in Jacksonville, but I think that he's got the wherewithal to get it done.
What do you think that locker room will be like with Tim Tebow in it?
Well, I mean, if he makes the team because of merit, I think it'll be fine. Because if you can contribute to the team and help them win, players are going to be okay with that. Now, if he makes the roster and no one saw him really do much out on the football field, they're going to be pretty pissed that the coaches
handed it to him,
essentially made the team for no apparent reason other than to collect a paycheck that can't contribute to the team and helping them win. Then there's going to be some blowback, but that won't happen until there's a roster that's complete. I mean, they bring in a ton of guys for camp legs and camp arms and all these things that have no chance of making the team. And, if he can't contribute, which I think it's going to be really difficult for him to do, then I'm sure he'll be cut. And this story will just be a thing where he came to camp and tried to prove it one last time and just couldn't get it done.
Mental and behavioral health advocate and, of course, former NFL player Ryan Leaf has been our guest. He will be in Nashville for a speaking engagement at the Nashville Recovery Center this Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. Ryan, thank you for the time, man. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
You bet. You guys have a great rest of the week.
Yep, you too.
Thanks, Ryan.
We will see Ryan Leaf on Sunday. And this is a free event. If you would like to attend, the information there on the screen. You can go to NashvilleRecoveryCenter.com for more information. And the Hall of Fame Behavioral Health, it's an easy-to-use concierge line that is easily able to pair you with a treatment center in your area that meets your needs. 866-901-1241 is the number, 901-1241. Or you can go to HOFBH.com for more information on that, plus more information on how they can help you if you're struggling financially but you still need to find help. HOFBH.com. And again, you don't have to be an athlete to reach out and get help. Great chat there with Ryan Leaf. I love the fact, Chad, that he went to SNL after the Heisman ceremony.
Yeah, and then went and partied after that also with a lot of ESPN people and former Heisman winners, and was behind the bar with Gino Torretta at that moment also. You can see why Ryan Leaf has done a good job in media.
Yeah.
Every time he does things like this, and we're happy to have him on this show, but he is terrific at telling his story, telling other stories. Always a pleasure when we get a chance to talk to him.
Our thanks to Ryan for joining us. John McClain's coming up in about 30 minutes, but when we come back, we get into a current college head coach that turned down a massive offer to be an NFL head coach. And why? We'll discuss why Matt Campbell remains at Iowa State. Chad, let us know about Renter's Warehouse.
Renter's Warehouse, I've been working with them, talking about them for a while, and for good reason, because they help so many people regardless of your financial situation. And if you own rental property and need cash, they've got their upfront program going on right now. By giving you your money upfront, Renter's Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. They're going to give you a full year of rent or up to a full year of rent paid up front when you sign up with Renters Warehouse. The Upfront Rent program is available for a limited time. Call Renters Warehouse Nashville at 615-398-9550 or visit rwnashville.com to see if you qualify. renterswarehouse.com, again, the website for this offer, rwnashville.com. Do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
Matt Campbell turned down a bunch of money from Detroit to stay in college football. We discuss that next on OutKick 360.
Meet Dave and Wendy. They're moving, so they're selling a lot of their stuff. But what about their house? Even in a good market, you should think twice before selling. The smarter financial decision might be renting instead, especially when you hire the professional landlords at Renters Warehouse. Don't sell out, cash in. Visit renterswarehouse.com right now and find out how much your house could rent for. A rental price analysis is totally free. So what have you got to lose? I'll take that guitar.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really excited to finally have some in-person OutKick VIP events. We're at 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky, Yeehaw Brewery. Awesome day, great questions, good to shake everybody's hand. It's just good to be able to get out and see everybody.
We love to meet with the people that make us possible as a show, the people that tune in, the people that watch, the people that listen.
A lot of these VIPs interact with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and now we get a chance to come out and hang out, watch games, and interact with them the same way we would interact with the three of us on a daily basis. It's awesome.
If you're at a VIP event, you're going to hear more about the inside jokes, stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can ask us anything. We want to be with listeners and viewers as much as possible, so we're thrilled.
Looking forward to doing a lot more of these VIP events as we continue to grow.
It's an incredible experience. I would advise everyone out there, if you're a fan of OutKick or OutKick 360, to sign up and be a VIP.
Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton, PK with the day off. Chad, Matt Campbell reports out that he turned down near $70 million to become the head coach of the Detroit Lions to stay at Iowa State. Earlier this offseason, it was reported that he had no interest in even hearing from the Texas Longhorns on their job opening. What's he up to?
Yeah, and we're showing right now, if you're watching, the tweet that got my attention. But the initial report came from Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports. $68.5 million over 8 years he was offered by the Detroit Lions. Now, this immediately makes everybody say, what in the hell is Matt Campbell doing, and what is he thinking that he would elect to stay in Ames, Iowa, and not go to the NFL, even if it's the Detroit Lions? To not go to the NFL, what in the world is he thinking? And my response is, what does it say about us that we are so conditioned to believe that if you get offered more money, you got to take it? That's automatically you're gone the moment more money is. I think this is the agent influence in sports that's taught us to believe this because coaches listen to their agents a lot of times. I'm sure that Joe Paterno was offered more money. I don't know if Joe Paterno had an agent. I'm sure Bobby Bowden was offered more money when they were starting those programs really from the ground up and building them to go somewhere else, and they ended up staying. Matt Campbell could turn Iowa State into one of those programs for all that we know. But it's so shocking when you see someone turn down a lot more money and a bigger opportunity to stay somewhere. Now, Matt Campbell may just be very different. He may not be money-driven and saying, I'm making a lot of money now. I'm set.
Well,
I like it here. I like how loyal this university's been to me, so I'm going to stay.
But he's being discussed in this manner because of what he's turned down previously. And the talking points have been, and Brent Hubbs brought this up last week with us. What's he waiting on? He's waiting on the right job to open up. Well, the thought was that would be the NFL. Is this going to be the time that he has the opportunity to jump to the NFL? Job comes open, $68 million. That's the report, and he turns it down. Tennessee has called him about their job openings in the past. Texas was interested. He had no interest in Texas. So the question would be, because his name comes up in every big job opening across the country, what job is he waiting on? And a part of this is he's currently at Iowa State. It's not like he's at Ohio State and they're waiting on the NFL or the Dallas Cowboys to come calling, right? That's the intrigue to me. And the other part of this, too, is we're assuming that everything is just exactly on an even playing field. Few have referenced Matt Rule, who turned down the New York Jets because they wanted control of his coaching staff. They gave him good money when he's the Baylor head coach to leave and become the Jets head coach, and he turned them down. They end up with Adam Gase because he wanted control of his coaching staff because he's the head coach, and rightfully so. And then Carolina came calling. He got a massive contract, upwards I believe just under what Gruden is receiving or Oakland turned Vegas, and things are working out for Matt Rule now in Carolina. So is it a similar situation? I thought of Matt Rule turning down the Jets when I heard of Campbell turning down the Lions.
Well, this is what's crazy, and this is from the quote from Dennis Dodd, who reported this story. And I guess he's in an interview setting saying this. But he says, in the offseason, Matt Campbell turned down an 8-year, $68.5 million offer from the Lions with full control. He says, I haven't confirmed that part of it, but he turned this down to stay at Iowa State. And he says, now, if I'm Matt Campbell's wife, I'm having some questions. But he sees his upward arch better at Iowa State than at the Lions, who are annually in disarray. So I guess the thought is that he's willing to leave Iowa State for the right NFL franchise or for the right college program. I don't know if it's not Texas, right? I mean, there's only
that's what I'm saying.
It's more of a regional fit to me. It's Ohio State, or there's not many programs ahead of Texas.
If we're listing,
so then it becomes more of a regional thing to me of where he wants to go.
If we're listing the top coaches across college football, he's a top 10 coach. Like he's among the top 10.
I think he's a top 10 coach in all of football, based on what an NFL team was willing to offer him. Dan Campbell even joked in an interview. He said, "Pretend my name is Matt when you negotiate with the Lions."
Right.
And he said they were going to land on a Campbell either way, so Campbell's can get the job done. But I thought that was funny that he knew what they were talking to Matt Campbell about, and he said, "Hey, try to get me that offer," which they didn't. But it's, and rightfully so, right? But I just keep going back to the immediate reaction is, and mine was the same. What in the world is going on that this guy would like to stay at Iowa State with no history for a lot less money than go coach any NFL team? I don't care that it's the Lions. But maybe Matt Campbell's just very different too. He's not. There are people who aren't completely money driven, which is a shock to some people, but they're not just going to take more money, even if it's double the amount of money. The whole back the Brinks truck up theory, it works with most people. It clearly didn't work with Matt Campbell. So it's not going to work with everyone. That doesn't always play. And it clearly doesn't play with this guy.
The Preds put their coaching search on. It was brief when they decided to go with John Hines. We'll discuss how things are going with the Nashville Predators. That's our lead story in
John
the Tennessee
Hines
Power Hour.
Accelerating the next coaching search for the Preds.
Oh, but his teams play hard. Play hard.
Got to keep that in mind.
They're down 2-0, or down 0-2, I should say, to Carolina. We discussed what we saw last night with the Preds and the Hurricanes and the impact on Game 3 coming up right here in Nashville. Plus, we'll hear from John McClain in about 20 minutes on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
There's money in your house, but if you're thinking of selling instead of renting, you might be missing it. Even in a hot housing market, selling your home can leave money on the table, while renting can give you a rich blend of benefits. Not just cold hard cash, but steady, reliable cash flow. When it comes to selling versus renting your home, renting can make a lot more sense.
Find out how much your home will rent for.
OutKick 360 rolls on. Hour number 2 is here. The Tennessee Power Hour alongside Chad Withrow. I'm Jonathan Hutton. No Paul Kuharsky today. A well-deserved day off as he attends Simon's graduation. I don't know if this is 5th or 6th grade. I want to say 6th, but
he's
so
we were doing the math on this. 11-year-olds are in 5th grade. He's in 11 under baseball. I know that.
So it's 5th.
It's got to be 5th grade, and he's probably
you're right.
He's headed to middle school, so that's 6th, 7th, 8th. Junior high is 7th and 8th grade.
I live in a world where, like, I always say, when someone says, how old are you? I always say I'm about to be X, like no matter what the year is.
You round up.
Yeah, so
you're a round-up guy.
Maybe I've heard Paul say 6th because he's about to be in 6th.
This can be confusing for a lot of people because if you're like me, we had a really weird school system in that it was K through 6 for elementary, which isn't always the case. Then when I was in school, we had junior high, which was 7th, 8th, 9th grade in the same building. You weren't in high school until 10th grade when I grew up. And then it shifted when I was in junior high, where the junior high was just 7th and 8th. 6th grade wasn't added to that, but just 2 grades. And then we went to the annex. So there was a 9th grade only school in Mount Juliet. And we had our own building separate of the high school that was a 9th grade annex. And you only changed classes and went to school with 9th graders, and then your high school year started in 10th grade the next year. So it's very different now that everyone considers high school 9th grade, right? Most people.
I do. I mean, you and I are not that different in age. 2 years.
You look at it now and you feel like
my high school started in 9th grade.
It's like I went to school in Oxfordshire, England, with the way the grades worked out. Like you tell people, it's like I'm Canadian. Like I also attended university and not college, the way the school systems was in Mount Juliet at the time, but it was very different now. So we've come to this conclusion that we think Simon's graduating 5th grade, and that is his elementary graduation. He will now move to middle school, which is 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I can also report this, and I'm trying to keep a tally. This is our 49th show that we've done with the OutKick 360 since we came over on March 15th, 49th show. This is the first day one of the hosts have been out. This is our first 2-person show since we've been here.
Well done.
I don't want to pat ourselves in the back.
Well done.
But that's a pretty good period of time to go without one person being out. Right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's start the new streak.
Also, no surprise it was Paul Kuharsky. That was the first one that's out. I think everyone that's watching right now or listening, not surprised at all that Paul's the first one to miss.
David Reed and Jakob Swanson making the show happen here from Blackbird Studios, the Blackbird Academy. We love being here in Studio G in Nashville, Tennessee. And that is where the Nashville Predators return home tomorrow, Game 3, in a series where they trail 0-2. They trail by 2 games right out of the gate against the Carolina Hurricanes after last night's defeat. The Preds played well. I mean, we can sit there and watch that game and say the Preds play well. We can also say they are not good enough to beat this Carolina team. And last night, UC Saros was. He was excellent. And that's a game, as Joe Rexrode pointed out from The Athletic, that is a game that UC Saros played well enough to steal, to get a game that the Preds were not able to score, get a late goal, take it to OT, whatever it took to get a win and bring the series back tied 1-1. They played well, but the fact of the matter is they are nowhere close to as good as Carolina. Credit the Hurricanes for closing. They've done that in the last 2 games. But Chad, your takeaway, watching this Predators team get close again. It's 1-0. They're in striking distance. It ends up 3-0 at the end. And those goals count. But to get it to, after that early goal on the power play for Carolina, it's 1-0. And to keep that with the way Saros was playing, I understand the frustration from Predators fans that say, should have won that game and didn't. And then I understand the frustration when Predators fans hear the same old crap in these post-game press conferences talking about their team playing hard. And it's not just John Hines. Some of the players as well. We heard this going back to the tournament last year in the postseason about the team playing hard. No one wants to hear that anymore. There are different expectations, and there's pressure on John Hines to deliver with this group. There's pressure on these players to deliver. There is pressure on David Poile to deliver, and they're not doing that. And it speaks volumes to me that not only are they the decided underdog in this series. It's obvious. It is clear and obvious that they are the real underdog in this matchup. That's the most glaring issue. It's not that they've lost these two games to a better team. It's how far and distant they are apart when you watch both teams on the ice and the expectations that both clubs have.
So 2017 was the run to the Stanley Cup final. They go from that to losing in the second round to Winnipeg in a great 7-game series the next year. Not a bad showing at all. They go from there to losing in the first round to a hungrier Dallas Stars team the next year when the Preds were the favorite in that series. They go to the next year where they were once again a slight favorite, I believe, against Arizona and got whipped in 4 games in a best-of-5 series.
Which is almost an afterthought.
To end the season, right. Yeah. And it was almost a throwaway because of everything surrounding the pandemic and everything else. And now they come back this year, and we're talking about just how much worse they are than Carolina. And it's so clear on the ice, and it's so clear throughout the season. This is a team that has fallen off the cliff. And they are going down, 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 down since 2017. And I think the broader question is, everything you said is right, Hutton. Why is Carolina so much better than the Preds? This was a team that's supposed to be in a window to compete for a Stanley Cup, and they are so clearly outclassed in this series, it's a problem. There's a rookie goalie in net for Carolina, and they can't score a single goal. And they played great. I agree with you. They played the game they needed to play to win and could not score 1 goal. And on the power play, time and time again, 7 power plays, and I'm watching those power plays. Those shots aren't getting to net.
Well,
they are not challenging the goalie. Every shot is blocked in the slot.
You're right.
They're not even getting it on the goalie, so they're not really applying the pressure you'd want to apply on a rookie goalie. And this all comes in a game where we're saying, boy, you know, for the Preds, they played really well. They played pretty good. That's the style they need to play to win that game. And yes, it's 3-0. It's really 1-0.
Right.
They score the empty netter, which I called it yesterday. I said they're going to score an empty netter to win by 2.
And we hit the under.
Didn't think the cheapie would happen after that to make it 3. But this is a problem for the Preds organization that we're coming off this game, and I know we've got some audio and video we may play also of post-game, but I think this whole mentality and this resignation from the fans that, well, Carolina's just better. They are. It's okay to admit that Carolina's just better, and they're clearly going to win this series. But this is headed for a 4-game sweep. Friday night's the night. Friday night when they come back home, it's going to be an energized crowd. That's the game they need to win if they're going to win a single game in this series. I just don't see them after that game where everybody admits, even the coaches and players, they played really well, and they lost 3-0. I don't see how they're winning a game in this series.
Well, and the link I had sent Jacob early this morning with the audio, the audio was gone. So I don't know if the tweet was deleted that I had or what, but the link wasn't active. But it was audio of John Hines post-game, and by now it's been across all over the place of him taking issue with Joe Rexroad's question about whether or not UC Saros play well enough to still win on the road in the postseason in Game 2, which he did. He did. And the second one was by Steve Lehman of News Channel 5, asked him what positives you take away and try to build around based on the fact that you think your team played well, because his reaction to Rexroad asking about Saros was, well, I thought our team played well. I thought our team played great. No, you were shut out. Did you see the shorthanded goal attempts by Carolina? They didn't go in because UC Saros played really well. But your power play is terrible. Terrible. And you're losing this series because you can't find an offense. You can't find 2 goals. That's a game you can win 2-1. I think on most nights, this Predators team wins 2-1 against Carolina in the regular season. But this is the playoff hockey style and mentality of one of the best teams in the league in Carolina, and Nashville's nowhere close to matching it. And I think that's the most disturbing part. When I say the separation in the teams, your head coach is saying that you played hard, you played great, and it's not just the goaltender that kept that game 1-0. Yossi played well. We should put him in that boat too. Aside from that, though, if everything is true in that statement, you are nowhere close to winning this series. And Chad is right. You're on your way to getting swept if that's the mentality of this team. Reed, as you watched this last night, as a Preds fan, what's going through your mind at 1-0 versus when they score the second goal and knowing that they're coming back down 0-2?
My initial thought was, when we got the inactives and Jacob Slavin, as I like to call him, in honor of our Jakob, I thought this is their chance to get one. If they're going to get one on the road, it's going to be because of this. So I have a lot of things to say about this. First of all, I'm kind of glad this is happening. I'm kind of glad that this was a shortened season and everything was rearranged the way it was, because had this been a normal season, we would have been competing in the Western Conference and beating teams like Chicago and Detroit and Dallas and making a run into playoffs, only to find out that, this team's good enough to compete in the West, but when you run into the other conference, you're just not good enough, because the Carolina Hurricane are showing you that you are just not good enough to win a Stanley Cup at this moment. And I don't know really where that starts. Here's where it kind of starts for me. I want a number one center who plays like a number one center every single shift and is not apathetic on defense. Can we send him back to Columbus? Is Seth? Will they make that trade? I'll take Seth Jones right now. I'll take Matt Duchene on that number one line as the center over what I'm seeing out of Ryan Johansson. And he wanted to act like a big tough guy last night and face swipe someone when there was only going to be one penalty on that play. The Canes were going back to the box, and he throws that little punch at whatever at the end and acts like he wants to go. If you want to go, if you want to be a big bad man, Ryan, here's what I want you to do. Do it when the puck is on your stick. How many times in the past have we heard David Poile say, Ryan Johansson has to play like a power forward? And how many times have we seen that? Rarely. Rarely have we seen that.
Rarely have we seen a fan base so dismissive of a Predators coach as well. They went on the run, and John Hines gets a lot of credit for putting this team into the postseason and punching the right buttons. The players get credit for turning things on when they did. David Poile gets credit for sticking with the roster that he had. Now they deserve blame for what we've seen. That's fair. If you're going to give them, prop them up, they deserve the vitriol that they're getting from this fan base, and I hope they hear more of it, especially in this city, by asking more questions. They were all fair questions last night in that post-game media press conference, from what I heard. And look, the bottom line is, it's not just John Hines. It starts up top now with David Poile, because they are the clear and decided underdog in this series. And when you commit to this group and this core player, these core group of players that are not producing time and time again, you have to ask yourself, why is this not good enough? Why did we commit $16 million to certain players in a core group this year instead of committing that money elsewhere? And at some point you have to look in the mirror and understand that's a terrible decision, and it's time to move on. That's the direction we're headed with this, and that's the frustration that is clearly seeping out when I hear comments from David Poile and when I hear John Hines get defensive over a question about his goaltender playing good enough to win when the rest of the team around him did not. You can say they played physical and you can say they showed great effort last night, and they did. But the reality is it's not good enough no matter what they're paying these dudes. That's the disturbing part about their lineup.
Well, and to quickly just recap what John Hines said, it was Joe Rexrode and Steve Lehman that said it. Joe Rexrode of The Athletic and Steve Lehman of News Channel 5. The questions were very fair, as you mentioned, Hutton. And it was essentially, the first one was, hey, your goalie played well enough to steal a game, which you need in a series like this, and you couldn't come through. How frustrating is that? John Hines made it sound like, which goalie are you talking about stole the game? And then very dismissive of, well, we played great. We played hard. Steve Lehman's follow-up was, how do you extract some sort of positive momentum from a game like that? And the response from John Hines was, I don't know what game you guys are watching, but we played great.
How do you extract positives when you're so bad on power play?
Yeah, we played hard.
Giving up the shorthanded attempts that you're allowing against your goaltender that's playing great.
Well,
that is a fair question to ask to a coach.
It's totally fair.
After a game where you had that 1-0 in the third period.
It's totally fair. And John Hines saying, I don't know what game you're watching. And
are we watching the same game?
Pretends that it's 1-0, we played hard, whatever. Here's the problem. I should restate what I said earlier about the Preds playing well. They played well at even strength. They played well 5-on-5, 4-on-4. They had better chances. They had more chances. They had more possession at even strength. They had 7 power plays that if you flipped on the TV and said there's a power play happening, you would say, I don't know which team's on the power play. That is a problem. There were times where it looked like Carolina was on the power play and not the Preds. And I can't say that they played great when that's such a big part of your game. When you've got 14 minutes of a 60-minute game on a power play where you're completely ineffective, so much so that the other team is getting better chances, shorthanded, then you didn't play great. That's a pretty big part of your game is special teams, and you didn't play great when that happened. They played great at even strength over the course of that game. I think we agree. UC Saros played great. Mm-hmm. Overall, they did not play great, and I'm tired of Preds coaches and players continuing to try to tell everyone how great they played and about their effort in losing efforts. And I don't want to hear about that, and no one does in a 3-0 loss. I really think it's that simple with this team. The bigger question, one we're going to get into this offseason, which is coming in a hurry for this Preds team, by Monday, I think we'll be talking about this because they'll be out of the playoffs by then. How is the gap that big? How is the gap that wide between a team in 2017 that went to a Stanley Cup final to the team now who the coach and the players are saying, guys, we're playing with so much effort, we're playing great, and losing 3-0 and down 0-2 in a series? How did we get here?
Well, and the conversation will also switch to what do we as a organization do, and the narrative will turn to what do the Preds do as an organization with all of these big contracts, and how long do they continue to go at this pace knowing it's not going to work? You can wish upon a star and think that Ryan Johansson's going to be a complete player. He's not. And then Matt Duchene's going to become an alpha. He's not. Right? Like that he's going to play more than 10 minutes per game. That you're going to be able to win a defensive style matchup against a team like Carolina. And again, I thought in game one, Carolina outworked Nashville, especially in that third period. That was not the case last night.
No.
But it's still not good enough. And that is disturbing just to watch it.
It's disturbing, and it's
also
it's a helpless feeling when you're paying skill guys to be skilled guys, and you get on a power play, and that's the result in those 7 power plays, and you know that it's not going to get any better.
I mentioned earlier I was recording something last night, so I didn't watch the game live. I watched it on DVR. I knew the result, and I knew and watched the post-game press conference. And so I'm trying to find the did we watch the same game controversy. And trying to find the idea that somehow Saros played great and the Preds shouldn't have been able to quote unquote steal a game in net from Saros. He absolutely played good enough to win, and the Preds should have won that game based on that effort. And as I'm watching that, especially in that first period, early second period, as I'm watching it and thinking about John Hines' comments, I'm thinking, did we watch the same game? Because Saros was outstanding, and other than Yossi, it's tough to point to a player that I thought was outstanding last night. Reed, can you name who's like number 3 on your list of great players that stood out to you last night? If we're making a list of standout Game 2 overall play and observation, I thought it was Saros, Yossi, who bounced back well. Who's next? Like, it's tough to point to anybody.
Matt Benning played well, but the bar was so low when you're stepping in for Harper.
Yeah.
Luke Cunnin plays well when he's on the ice, but he's only on the ice when you're on 5-on-5 because he's not on any of the special teams.
Yeah.
So you're also hurting yourself there. And it's also it's an indictment, I think, on Dante Fabro that a rookie and Alex Carrier is on the ice in a playoff situation.
Is he hurt?
I don't know if he was back for that Saturday night game against Carolina, and I want to say he was out again but he's not. He wasn't on any of the injury list that I saw. Here's what I think's happening with John Hines. I think we clearly see with some of the younger players on this team the style of hockey he wants to play. He wants to play a rough and tumble, slow it down, beat people up hockey, and that's perfectly fine when you're getting production from your top lines or even your second line, which is not happening. That style of defense last night was what they needed to win a game, to steal a game. But when you're not getting performance from Forsberg or Arvidsson or Johansson or Duchene or Cunnin, I mean, you're not going to win very many games like that. And that, to me, there's going to be some difficult decisions made in the offseason. and there's going to be a lot of Predators fans who are heartbroken.
So just spitballing here. My honest reaction when I hear Poyle on Monday locally during interviews be critical and critically thinking through roster lineup changes based on Monday's result on Tuesday. He's very honest, and I love him for it. I love chatting with David Poyle because he's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. And then I hear John Hines get defensive for the second consecutive postgame about their effort and style of play. I cannot help but think, and I may be way off base here, that he's defensive of his job.
Yeah.
I can't help but go there and think that in that moment based on the just eyebrow-raising comments that we're seeing from him after he's just, so happy-go-lucky after they make the postseason over the weekend. You know, he's like, the guy's playing. It's just be truthful and forthright and honest about it. And I think he's being more defensive than he is being honest assessment of what he's seen in front of him.
He struck me as a guy that one of two things happened. Either he knows he's fired and he's getting pissy and defensive about his team, or he knows he's fine, and now I can start saying he can start challenging the media the way he wants in these press conferences because he's not petitioning for the job at that point. I'm either good or I'm out. And now I can tell you people what I think of you, and I don't like my GM going on interviews and talking about lineup changes and everything else. I think one of two is true. I also think this is a really funny tweet from Wes from Franklin, who is a loyal season ticket holder of OutKick 360, who said after those comments, I'm really curious what New Jersey Devils games GM David Poyle was watching that made him think Hines would be a good hire after he made those comments. And that's now also, look, everything is fair.
Well, don't they have some connection with USA Hockey or something, didn't they?
Yes, but whatever connection we want to discuss now or whatever situation with the Preds, I mean, I think everything is on the table. I'm getting texts from people that says Hines has got to go, and other people saying Poyle's got to go, and then someone saying everyone's got to go, and you got to start from scratch. I don't know that I've come to a conclusion on exactly what should happen. I just know something has to give. Something has to happen.
One thing
we know David Poyle is willing to make something happen if he feels improvements have to be made.
Yeah.
I don't know if David Poyle is going to be the one pulling the trigger on this one, this go around, but something's got to go down.
I haven't seen. This is a fan base that's very defensive of its team, when the going gets tough and any critical element. And when I say fan base, I'm lumping everyone in. There are people that are very analytical and level-headed and minded about it. But there are others with the ones that wear face masks, like wrestlers, luchadors, who will come out and say, "How dare you be critical of of my Preds?" Which is fine; it's their prerogative. But I see even those fans being very dismissive of John Hines, and I haven't seen that a lot from this fan base with any individual head coach over the years, just thinking back through it. Laviolette grew old with a lot of people, but there was at least a divisive line between, is it Poyle, is it Laviolette, or should Laviolette get another opportunity to finish things out, right? With John Hines, it's like, 2 games, they've lost 2, screw this guy. He's terrible. He was fired for a reason, GTFO.
I get the same sense from fans.
And that's just me scrolling Twitter and reading the tweets and the live reaction from fans, which the Preds do, which Sean Henry does, which David Poyle hears about. They do the exact same thing. And internally, whether or not they'll admit it or not, they have to be thinking the same thing because they need to sell season tickets. And right now, this fan base is growing more and more frustrated and not willing to buy into the message that you're sending, that this is a rough and tumble, tough team that brings it every night. We're not seeing that. And even if we are, it's not measuring up to the best teams in the league, which is ultimately what you're trying to sell. Coming up, John McClain. We switch gears and we talk NFL headlines with the general.
The man
in black is what we call
him on this
legend,
show. The Hall of Famer. He's got many, many nicknames, and he's got many memories of the NFL. I'm not calling him just old. I'm telling you he's a genius, and you're going to want to watch it.
Tim Tebow is in a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform today. John McClain's thoughts on that next on OutKick 360.
Renters Warehouse handles your property management. We take the hit. The refrigerator light bulb burned out. Little Tommy broke a window. There's a critter in the basement that could eat a cat. There's a hot tub in the kitchen. Mary Jane in the closet. Pirate on the roof. Someone had a party. Someone released the Kraken. Indoor roller derby. Indoor compost heap. Unauthorized sublet. Cuban cigars. Food fight. Dirt fight. Skunk fight. Anything else?
RentersWarehouse.com.
OutKick 360 rolls on in the Tennessee Power Hour alongside Chad Withrow. I'm Jonathan Hutton, pleased to be joined by our favorite guest, John McClain from the Houston Chronicle. You can follow him on Twitter at McClain_on_NFL. John, it is always great to have you on. There are always NFL headlines to talk about, and you're going to be in town on June the 12th. Right here in Music City. We're going to tell our listeners and our viewers more about that in a moment, an event you're pairing up with Jeff Fisher and Eddie George. But first, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for having me on as always.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen a press release like the one the Jacksonville Jaguars sent out earlier today when they announced the signing of the 90th man on their roster, tight end Tim Tebow?
Never, but there's never 90th man on a roster like Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner, a guy who has a lot of fans and a lot of detractors. If it weren't for Urban Meyer, his college coach, being the new head coach of the Bears, he'd be back doing TV broadcasts, or he'd still be bouncing around the league system. But 1 in 15 consecutive losses, and all publicity it can get to try to generate interest. I can understand why they're doing it with Tebow, because he is certainly generating more interest in that franchise with Urban Meyer and, of course, Trevor Lawrence.
You know, the interest angle is intriguing to me because it's not like they need to generate more interest. They just drafted Trevor Lawrence. They have Urban Meyer. What they're building is fine. Why bring in Tim Tebow with all the distraction and the hoopla that we know will come with that?
I'm guessing that he asked Urban Meyer for a tryout. People thought he should be a tight end when he came in the NFL. When people said that, his fans just went ballistic. You know, this guy's a quarterback. He's going to be a great quarterback for the Broncos. And the only person that thought he was the number one pick was their head coach at the time, Josh McDaniels. So I think that Tebow, after being out 8 years, would be shocked if he makes the team. But it's created a lot of interest in Jacksonville. They still need to sell tickets. They're not selling out every game because they have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. And another thing about Tebow is he can do a lot of things in the public. You know, he can create a lot of interest, get out and go to different fan clubs and groups and do what he can. But he has a long shot to make that roster, even one that's being rebuilt.
John, you're on with us in the Tennessee Power Hour, and it's a story that's getting a lot of attention locally. The Tennessee Titans, when they list the analytics departments for every NFL team, they're the lone team that's NA. They don't have an analyst in their organization. What's your reaction when you see that story?
Kind of like there's a lot of teams that have analytics and don't call it analytics. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, but there are a lot of teams. Texans don't call them analytics, but they have a whole department under a different type of name. NFL teams are so secretive, you'd think they were the Kremlin. But based on what has happened with that team under John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, if I was fans, I would have faith in them, especially because they're the favorite to win the division again.
The Texans will open the preseason in, what, 3.5 months against Green Bay. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the sideline, not playing in that preseason game, but standing on the sideline next to Matt LaFleur in that game?
The thing about that, he's not getting paid. If he's not there, he's going to get fined a lot. But the game checks start when the regular season begins. But they've made it really tough in the new collective bargaining agreement that the players agreed to, that there are a lot of stiff fines if you miss games or if you miss training camp days when you're under contract. So I'm guessing he doesn't want to lose all that money in fines. So I'm going to guess he will be on the sideline watching his eventual replacement, Jordan Love, play against the Texans, and probably their rookie quarterback, Davis Mills.
John, I'm going to ask you about the quarterback controversy, the quarterback that everyone's talking about across the league. No, it's not Aaron Rodgers. It's Jeff Driscoll signing with your Houston Texans. What do you make of the one-year deal for Jeff Driscoll in Houston?
Same thing I made of almost every other 1 or 2 year deals they signed with veterans who either can't play or haven't played recently. Jeff Driscoll being the 5th quarterback on the roster, counting Deshaun Watson, but I don't expect him to be on the roster when the season begins. And Driscoll be competing for a job with, say, Ryan Finley. They trade a 6th-round pick to Cincinnati to get him. There's no guarantee he's going to make the team. Driscoll's bounced around. He's a journeyman. You know, they're loaded with journeymen.
So you've got these these interesting quarterback-receiver combos that were college teammates now playing together in the NFL. You got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tua and Jalen Waddle, and Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. John, do you think this is something that could start a trend and it makes sense for teams? Or is it merely these are the best receivers in the draft because all of these guys are coming from the best programs in college football, and it's just coincidence it worked out this way?
Chad, I think it's an aberration because this was a great year for wide receivers. They said last year was a great year for wide receivers, but most of those guys take time to develop, unless you're Justin Jefferson at Minnesota, who was fabulous. But these guys were top-notch, all-rated, top 15 prospects, and if they can get some familiarity with the quarterback, then that more power to them. But these guys are top receiver prospects. I can't wait to see how they do with the new teams, no matter what quarterback they're playing with.
John McClain with us. He's with the Houston Chronicle, and you can follow him on Twitter at McClain_on_NFL. John, Ja'Wuan James released by the Denver Broncos early this week over the weekend, and then he tweets out that, hey, if the NFLPA is going to ask the players to not show up to these voluntary workouts and instead work out on our own and we get injured, like Ja'Wuan James did, the NFLPA needs to have our backs. Do you agree with James, and what did you make of that story?
First of all, I think players are smart enough to make up their own mind. Most players have reported. They know because it's in the collective bargaining agreement, and their agents have told them, and their teams have told them, if you get hurt away from the facility, there's a chance you're not going to get. Now, if you're a great player, say it happened to Derrick Henry, of course they're going to pay Derrick Henry. But when you're a guy in Juwan James's situation, played 3 games after signing there in 19, opted out last year, you're gone. You're a test case. They had another guy blow out his knee. He's gone too. And the union can squawk about it all at once. Well, the team told them what to do. That doesn't matter. It's clearly covered in the CBA, and that's why I do not know why players would not be working out at their facilities. Remember, when the union first recommended that, he said it because of COVID-19. Well, what is a safer place than a team's facility where you can get vaccinated, you can get tested every day, get the results back in an hour, plus you got all the protocols in place from last year. There's no safer place for a player than with its team.
And how strange is it that we're now seeing individual teams and its players discuss off-season regimen, much like in Philadelphia, that's not even going to have these types of workouts after discussing things with vets. Your thoughts on the team-by-team basis instead of the NFLPA and the NFL discussing this?
Well, give them more money than they've ever given them for showing up. I can't remember now how many players. I think 430 had workout bonuses. A player like Brandon Cooks, the Texans' best receiver, has a $500,000 workout bonus. So, of course, he's here. The union encouraged those players, go in and get your money. But I can talk like the Texans. When they initially started, they had over 50% the first day. They've had over 70 players each day of phase 2 this week. And players come and go since it's voluntary. And most of what the Texans have done, it's all walkthrough. And phase 3, which is 10 OTAs next week, they can do 9-on-7, 7-on-7, whatever they want. But, there's no hitting and there's no pads. It's basically patty cake football, and I don't know why they're all complaining about it.
John McClain from the Houston Chronicle, our guest on OutKick 360. John, I want your gut reaction right now to this question. Will Julio Jones suit up for the Atlanta Falcons this season?
I'm going to say no, Chad Lack, and I think that one of the things that will happen, team with an extra second-round pick, say in 2022, might be the most likely to trade for him, but they'd have to redo a contract. Nobody wants his salary cap bigger. The Falcons have the worst cap situation in the league. They redid Matt Ryan, pushed him to next year, $48.5 million cap hit. That won't be the case. They'll have to redo it again. In fact, that they were trying to trade him before the draft and didn't get any takers, considering his age and how many games he missed with an injury last year. It's going to be hard to do. They might have to settle for a conditional 3 that could be a 2 based on the playing time.
Follow-up question, John. How good would Julio Jones look in a Titans uniform in 2021?
If he's healthy, he'd look good in anybody's uniform. And he would certainly help A.J. Brown. If they think they are a wide receiver away from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, then he would be worth a 3 that could be a 2 if indeed the Falcons would take that. But he's coming off an injury-plagued season, and receivers get up at this age most of the time, not all of them. Larry Fitzgerald being a great example. Most of them start to decline. But if they could get another year or 2 out of Julio Jones, he would fit well, I think, with any team that needed another receiver to get to that next level.
I know we've been discussing for the last 2 years, Indianapolis and their cap space. I don't know why they wouldn't chase Julio Jones and try to pair him with Carson Wentz in Indy. To me, that's a perfect sense type move, perfect fit. And I know they're one of the teams mentioned, John, but there are more teams than just locally right here with the Titans that could use Julio Jones, the veteran savvy, and that future Hall of Fame quality.
They've already given up draft picks next year for Carson Wentz. I can't imagine Chris Ballard, the way he usually protects those draft picks as a general manager, wants to start doing that. You know, they were good enough to tie the Titans, and of course, both of them lost in the first playoff game. But they've done some things to improve the team, and they believe starting with Carson Wentz. But I don't see him giving up picks after what he gave up for Wentz.
John McClain with us. He's going to be in town on June the 12th with Jeff Fisher, Eddie George, John Dwyer, and George Plaster. John, tell us what you're doing with Jeff Fisher on the farm right here in Music City.
Well, first of all, you can get those tickets for go hfmeals.org. There are 250 each. They're for the Heimerdinger Foundation after the late, great Mike Heimerdinger, longtime NFL offensive coordinator, including with the Titans. Everybody liked and respected Mike. They've done a tremendous job with that annual event. It's been a golf tournament in the past, and Fisher called me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing the same thing we used to do with the McClain dinners. And 13 years in a row, in which we get up on the stage and we start telling stories. Everybody gets great food, autographs, pictures. It's a great event. As I tell everybody, it's tax deductible. You can give your money to Uncle Sam, or you can give it to the Heimerdinger Foundation and know it's going for a great cause. That's hfmeals.org. And I really appreciate you guys letting us promote it, because I'm really looking forward to it. And I can't wait to see the new Tennessee State head coach, Eddie George, in 1996 as an Oilers rookie.
Hey, I can't wait to try this menu. I mean, you mentioned the ticket price and the website and the off-the-record conversation. You're having wild Alaskan halibut along with some kind of pea shoot salad. It sounds like an offense. It doesn't sound like a meal, but that's what John McClain brings to the table at these events. I can't wait to see what this is all about, John.
I have no idea where Kingston Springs is, where Jeff's got his farm out there. You guys could tell me. All I know is I'll be out there early, greeting everybody the way I used to for the Charles Davis Foundation dinners, and I can't wait to see people. This is the first charity I've done up there because of the pandemic. It's 2 years ago when we did the thing for leukemia. Yep. Jonathan, that was a great event. And then the annual thing I did for Duchenne muscular dystrophy with my buddy Jim Caden and Mike Vrabel and John Robinson. And last year, I did not get to come up for those events. And now I'm fired up about coming back for something besides football.
And it's all to benefit the Heimerdinger Foundation, hfmeals.org, for more information on this great event. John, thank you as always for the time. We certainly appreciate the conversation. We'll chat again soon on OutKick 360.
Jonathan and Chad, it's always great to talk with you guys. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
John McClain of the Houston Chronicle has been our guest. You can follow him on Twitter at McClain_on_NFL. We're going to talk some more NFL headlines, some Titans football, Preds hockey, and much more straight ahead. But first, Chad, let us know about Renters Warehouse.
John McClain, notable Baylor alum. Also, though not many people knew this, got his graduate degree from the Culinary Institute of America. That's how he came up with that menu for that event. If you go to either of those schools, you're going to learn how to make some money. And that's what Renters Warehouse is all about, helping you maximize and make more money and helping you in uncertain times. If you own rental property and need cash and you're worried about receiving rent on time, which is a problem for a lot of people right now, you can get the most out of your real estate investment by receiving a full year of rent paid up front. That's up to a year of rent payments in your pocket right now. By giving your money up front, Renters Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. The upfront rent program available for a limited time. Just call Renters Warehouse Nashville at 615-398-9550. You can see the number on the screen if you're watching. Again, the number is 615-398-9550 or visit rwnashville.com to see if you qualify. renterswarehouse.com. Do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
Hit us up in the chat, on the YouTube chat and on Twitter at OutKick360 as the show goes on.
When you have people renting your house, you may get a call about a certain plumbing issue. Someone has dropped the kids off at the pool, sunk a sausage, cooked a meatloaf in the porcelain saucepan, downloaded a brown load. And now they need someone to plunge in and clear the air. So, would you rather that call go to you or to Renters Warehouse? Thought so. Remember, when the call's about number 2, you'll be glad you work with number 1.
VenturesWarehouse.com.
The 360 Masters is back. Hey, it's Hutton. Hope you'll join us on June 10th for a one-of-a-kind event with OutKick 360, other great writers and producers from OutKick, including David Reed, who will throw his back out again for the second annual event. Thursday, June 10th, you can sign up on Eventbrite or just follow us on Twitter at OutKick 360. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. Hope you'll join us for a great event. Get your team today and join us at Topgolf Nashville for the 360 Masters. OutKick 360, wrapping up what's been a fun show. PK will be back with us tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Our thanks to John McClain for joining us today. Also Ryan Leaf. If you missed both of those conversations or either, you can go back on the podcast wherever you download your podcast. And we hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search out OutKick 360 channel.
That's key. Add channel to the end of it.
360 channel at the top of YouTube. As we grow the base, we will pop up in more YouTube algorithms, but we need your help with that. Several of you have already done that, and by doing that, you can go to OutKick's VIP page and type in OK VIP, or 360 VIP, 360 VIP, and that's going to get you 30% off VIP membership at OutKick.com. Parlay time, 360 yes. Parlay. Chad lost his yesterday.
I'm applauding my loss last night. 2 out of 3, though.
He hit Monday night, lost last night, so it's now on me. FanDuel.com/OK360. That is the website that you're seeing here, and here is tonight's two-team parlay.
Courtesy of Jonathan Hutton.
$5 is what all three of us are going to place, plus 297 on the odds. We're taking the Pacers plus 3.5. They put up 144 points. Correct me if I'm wrong. 144 points in regulation in their last game, in their play-in matchup.
That is correct. Michael Jordan ain't walking through that door for the Charlotte Hornets, even though he owns the team.
I'm staying with the hot offense for the Pacers. I'm taking the points. I think this is a final 3 minutes, tight matchup. Let's go. And then the Vegas Golden Knights, they've hit the under, way under, over their last 2 games. It's time to go over. These are 2 really solid offensive teams playing tonight with the Knights and the Wild.
This is the something's got to give play.
I'm taking the over 5.5 goals tonight for our 2-team parlay, the 360 parlay at FanDuel.com. Let's go.
I'm taking your advice, Hutton, on this, and this is how we're going to do it. We'll ride the hot hand. I won 2 nights ago. I lost last night. It now goes, the responsibility goes to you for the 360 parlay, so I'm taking your advice. I've placed the bet. I'm ready to go with these games tonight. Tennessee also looking like they may be a little bit more ready to go on defense. Yeah,
they got a parlay going defensively.
Yeah, so when you look at Tennessee's incoming football transfers, and what they lost is significant. The top 2 transfers in the entire market, based on what list you look on, Henry To'oTo'o and also Eric Gray. Wanye Morris, another top 10 player, that's out as well. So they're losing a lot. What do they gain? Defensively alone, Caleb Tremblay, defensive end from USC, Dejon Terry, defensive tackle from Kansas, Juwan Mitchell, linebacker from Texas, Auburn, a cornerback, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but they get some cornerback depth with him. And today announced William, I'm going to pronounce it as Mohan.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Probably something else. Thank you, Hutton. Sounds perfect. He's from Brooklyn, New York. When I think of Brooklyn, New York, I unfortunately think of Isaiah Wilson. He is staying the entire region for me for football players. But William Mohan was the number 1 ranked prospect in the state of New York. 4-star player, outside linebacker, 6'2", 205. He played in 1 game his freshman year, true freshman year at Michigan this last year. They're going in a different direction. Defensively, Tim Banks comes from Michigan to Tennessee. He brings over this linebacker. It's a good thing to have bodies at Tennessee. But I'm looking at this list, I'm thinking there's probably 4 or 5 new defensive starters. Certainly Juwan Mitchell is going to start. He was the leading tackler for Texas a year ago, and they have a huge need at linebacker. I think Mohan has a chance to start. I think Dejon Terry from Kansas, who was one of their better players, has a chance to start on the interior defensive line. I think the Auburn cornerback is going to add, I'm not talking deep depth, I'm talking he's going to be in the rotation at corner. So Josh Heupel doing some really nice things in the transfer market. He couldn't help the guys who were committed to Jeremy Pruitt that left. I think they tried and failed with those guys. I'm not going to put that on Josh Heupel for those players that wanted a different system. But a pretty good job of salvaging some roster spots in the transfer market for Tennessee. And I think you're going to see a completely different defense in certain instances with some of these transfers. Also keep in mind, you've got 2 quarterbacks that are going to compete for the starting job from transfers. Hendon Hooker from Virginia Tech and now Joe Milton also from Michigan. So all in all, pretty good job by Josh Heupel considering what they lost in the transfer market to swing pretty big for some guys in the incoming transfer market and land some of these guys.
It's a great preview for our Tennessee Power Hour tomorrow with Brent Hubbs and Austin Price.
Yeah, a lot to get to with that. And I think there's still more movement to be had, and I know that Austin Price has been hinting at some of this, and I think there may be more movement to be had with guys leaving Tennessee as well. This is the reality of college football. There's always something that's going to be popping.
The deadline is
There's
June
always
1st.
going to be someone coming in or
right?
someone going out.
June 1st deadline?
June 1st, and I think some guys will walk right up to that line before deciding.
Yeah. David Reed's not walking to that line. He said he's staying. He's not leaving. Great job today by David Reed and Jakob Swanson, Lance Lee. Wherever you may be, we know you're watching, sir. And we hope you are back soon. Becca Risley, appreciate you. Sleepy Danny, good morning to you as you prepare for Clay's show coming up in a couple of hours.
Let me just say this on our way out. You want to watch this show every day. You definitely want to watch it. You never want to watch this horrific movie that Jacob Swanson told me to read the Wikipedia description of. We have this game where I will not watch horror movies or overly sadistic films, but I love to read the Wikipedia plot of these films. And Jacob Swanson brought one in that was so disturbing that I will never be able to unsee the mental images of what it spells out in the plot on Wikipedia of this film. If you want to hit me up on Twitter or on social media and guess what the movie is, I may tell you if you are correct. But I am telling you, this is the first time that the movie was so horrific that I can't even repeat the name of the movie on this show. So don't do it. But the game we play with Jacob Swanson is fun. I do enjoy that daily.
It doesn't and this movie doesn't involve one cup and 2 people.
It does not. Okay. That does not. That's a different type of movie. That's actually on tomorrow's reading list. Jacob has that for me.
It's also a fan favorite of Jacob Swanson.
Yes.
That's on my OnlyFans site.
We are back at it tomorrow. PK will be back with us tomorrow as well. He would love for you to know to not block the box, but do lock the locks.
And since he's not here, can I close it out?
Please rise and do this.
Can we get this camera on me as we close out here? Just this is for you, Paul. Bang bang!